Here we're going to talk the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a team that was 10-1 through 12 weeks last year, Femi, and for whatever reason, everyone every single week wanted to bet against them, and all they did was go out and basically cover every single week. They were 7-2-2 against the spread through 11 games as well, and then the wheels fell off. And it was kind of something that as you were watching, you could see it slowly happening. The defense just started to crumble, things going worse and worse and worse. The offense not really doing what you thought. So Brian Johnson out as OC, enter Kellen Moore now for the Eagles in all this. The big story in the offseason here, Jason Kelce does decide to retire. Hassan Reddick out of town, DeAndre Swift out of town as well. That said, if you want to talk about an offseason that maybe you could get excited about if you were a fan of the Eagles, Saquon Barkley, Bryce Huff, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Devin White, Zach Bond, Paris Campbell. These are all guys who are going to come in and start for this Eagles squad. And so on top of drafting 2 corners as well that are likely going to end up starting in some capacity, whether it be in the nickel, be in the slot or whatever it might be as nickelbacks. But I look at this team that I liked anyway, then I see the free agency, then I see what they did in the draft, directly going after a position of need for them. I thought they hit it out of the park. I liked them anyway, and I like them even better now.
Yeah, no, they're a really good football team. A lot of talent there. Howie Roseman does a tremendous job every single year of building this roster out here. And I think the coordinator changes, I think, are the big ones there. Brian Johnson out. I know they got a little weird on offense and defense as well. Like all of a sudden, Patricia started calling the plays instead of Sean Desai. Like it was very strange. It was odd, very strange. And it started with that Seattle game on Monday Night Football in the rain there, where they ultimately lost that one, giving up that drive to Drew Lock there. But you mentioned it now. It's Vic Fangio, and now it's Kellen Moore. I am curious to see how Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts kind of fit this thing out, because I know Hurts has said that, hey, this is the Kellen Moore show. Like 95% of the offense is different than what we ran in the past. It's not going to be the Nick Sirianni offense of like Shane Steichen kind of ran that a couple years ago when they made it to the Super Bowl. And then it looked like Brian Johnson was trying to call that Sirianni offense as well last year, and it didn't really work out as it did. But I do wonder this Kelce retirement, how that impacts him on the field and off the field from a leadership standpoint. He was one of the leaders of the locker. He had been there since Andy Reid was the head coach in Philadelphia. Like he was a mainstay in that locker room. But on the field, I mean, the Eagles with Kelce and Hurts, they had 1st and 9 while everyone else had 1st and 10, because 4th and 1 was an automatic with this tush push thing. Is that going to be the same with Cam Jurgens now sliding over and playing that center role? I know they've been kind of grooming him to be the Kelce heir apparent, but I know you're high on this team with a lot of these markets there with win totals and division and
all kinds
anything
of,
else, man.
All kinds of stuff.
Win the NFC maybe?
For this team. I mean, you do look, okay, so Super Bowl 17-1 out there on the Eagles. They're behind the Chiefs, behind the 49ers, behind the Ravens, who I actually have a lot of question marks about with the Ravens, the Lions, the Bills. I have a lot of question marks about the Bills, whether they're even the best team in that division or not. Cincinnati, what is that team going to look like with a disgruntled T. Higgins? I think there's a lot of questions around. And look, I like the Texans as much as anybody, but they have shorter odds than this Eagles squad where it was a awesome sample size, but it's a 1-year sample size of C.J. Stroud playing really, really well. As where it was where we've seen Jalen Hurts, we've seen this team. It seems like they've gotten better in the offseason as well with some of the stuff they did. So I don't know. I don't know if the odds are necessarily, to me, indicative of where I put them comparatively to the rest of these teams that are shorter than them.
Oh, 100%. I think the Houston Texans, we're not supposed to talk about them today, but I think there's a little bit too much love out there for the Houston Texans. Like, all right, let's let them do it once again before we start saying that this is one of the
season, but it's one season.
And the AFC South was bad last year. Like, let's not lose sight of that. I know they won the playoff game against Cleveland and all that stuff, but yeah, Philadelphia. How much of this also is kind of that the NFC East has sort of turned into the zigzag division of the NFL? Yeah. Like, no repeat winner since 2004. The Eagles were the last team to do it, and that was with Donovan McNabb, Andy Reid, and Terrell Owens on the roster. It's always been kind of Dallas, then Philly, then maybe the Commanders will sneak in a random division win if everyone else's quarterback gets hurt that year. Like, that's kind of how the NFC East, the cadence of this division has gone, and it looked like we were going to get a repeat winner last year until the Eagles kind of crumbled down the stretch, and they still even had to lose to the Cardinals for Dallas to eventually take over and win that division. That's just an unbelievable collapse by the Eagles last season, which is why they made these wholesale changes. But this has sort of been the zigzag division, and the Eagles and Cowboys, I think most people probably think they're neck and neck. Philadelphia probably a little bit better, to where, I mean, the plus money prices that were out there earlier this offseason that are no longer out there now, plus 105. I mean, you could have gotten like plus 160, 170 on this team to ultimately win this division. Yeah,
you look, and from an offensive standpoint, I know we live in this running backs don't matter era right now, Femi, but to me, there are a handful of running backs that actually do matter. We talked about Christian McCaffrey earlier in the show. I think Saquon Barkley fits that bill as well. When Saquon Barkley's right and he's healthy, the stuff he's doing out there, you can tell it's just different. And now, as you behind Mailata and Dickerson and Johnson and all these guys. Like, what does he look like, and what does that do for this offense as a whole, who already have 2 stud wide receivers to go along with Jalen Hurts, who's really progressed as a passer over the last few years?
Would you bet Saquon Barkley Offensive Player of the Year?
I mean, there's an interesting thought behind that. I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet, but I mean, you do look at, you hear, okay, so other thing we should mention here. So you hear about the wholesale offensive changes too. Jalen Hurts talking about how they implemented at least like 90% new plays. A lot of that, from what the rumors you hear from these beat writers, is they're using Saquon Barkley a lot out of the backfield because they're going, hey, why do we not get the ball in this guy's hands as much as humanly possible? Yeah, like, he makes guys actually just miss. He doesn't just break tackles. He like breaks guys' ankles. And so you would think that this guy, I'm not going to say McCaffrey-esque numbers, but in an upside season, it could be pretty close.
Could be.
Yeah.
It could be. Like, he has the talent to do it. There's a reason why he went 2nd overall way back when. I think what's fascinating about this team is with the 2 coordinator changes, and these are coordinators that have been around. Vic Fangio's been around forever. Kellen Moore's he's been around a while, that people kind of know what he wants to do, but they don't know what those guys want to do with this personnel, which is why the way I sort of attack the Eagles, and I haven't made this bet yet, but I would kind of encourage people to think about this one. And it's over at the drive to 5. There's all the millions of markings that DraftKings has. Yeah. The drive to 5, what will the Eagles' record be and how many wins after their first 5 regular season games? And I guess 4, and that plays out plus 600. And if you look at their schedule, it's, they got some challenging games, but it's pretty favorable. Like the Brazil game against the Packers, coin flip game, come home to play the Falcons, at New Orleans, at Tampa, weeks 3 and 4, bye week, and then you're home coming off the bye against a Cleveland Browns team, which on defense wasn't as good on the road as they were at home. Why can't they go 4-1?
Yeah.
Like, and then when teams are still trying to play catch up of how's Kellen Moore using Saquon Barkley, how's Vic Fangio using this new secondary and all that stuff, like maybe they can kind of jump on teams like they did a couple years ago.
I absolutely love that. I wasn't as quick to get on the Eagles as I would have liked. I got plus 125 and plus 115 on them to win that NFC East. And it's really just more of the numbers that were available and what I think they are comparatively, again, to the other teams. It's really, in my opinion, between them and the Cowboys. I'm probably a little bit more down on the Cowboys than I am on the improvements made by the Eagles in the offseason. I also took an all-over on them. There's an over 11.5 wins at plus 240. It's currently sitting at 10.5. You're only asking for one more win. And what we talk about a lot of times in these win totals, guys, and you'll hear everyone on the network talk about this a ton, so I'm not, this isn't, this is not one of the things where I'm sitting here like, I'm so smart. Like, no, that's not what I'm doing. But it's a lot of teams typically will go over by a couple of games or under by several games. Like they either typically overperform or drastically underperform. And so like I will look at a team specifically like the Eagles. If I think they're going to be really good, I'm not going to, 11 games or 12 games, I'll bet them to win 12 games, right? I mean, the 12 and 5, 17 game season type stuff like that. I will always kind of look in that direction at a big plus money number for a squad like this. And I'm not saying they're gimme wins against the Commanders and Giants, but you look at, that's 4 games on their schedule, right? I mean, that's 4 games already on their schedule, which definitely going to be against a rookie quarterback, and who knows what's going to end up happening in New York with the Giants. And so I do like that alt win over. And if you want to just play it normal at 10.5, I think this team's, I'm not going to say the floor is 11 games, but I think it's pretty close to the floor is 11 games, so long as they don't get the injury bug.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's a really talented roster there. They have a quarterback that's done it before and has won big games. So I think the Eagles, they're set up for a big year. And as a Cowboys fan, it pains me to say that, but hey, it's the reality.